On August 10th, 1628, the Swedish warship Vasa set sail for the first and last time. Arguably the most powerful warship on Earth, she departed Stockholm to the cheers of thousands. But only a few minutes later, water began rushing into the ship, swiftly sending her and 30 crew members to the seabed. Furious, King Gustavus Adolphus wanted answers and heads to roll. How did a ship this formidable end up so poorly designed? And who let her sail? The answers lie in Vasa herself, perfectly preserved for 333 years, salvaged, and now housed in a museum that showcases her almost exactly as she was the day she sank. In 1625, Gustavus urgently needed to rebuild his navy. He was at war with Poland, Lithuania, and his fleet was vanishing, some to enemy guns, 10 more to a recent storm. But he didn't just want his losses replaced. He recognized that naval combat was changing. The future wouldn't be won by pulling alongside an enemy and fighting hand to hand, but by overwhelming firepower from large ships. To lead that new era, Sweden commissioned 4 warships of a modern design, 2 large and 2 medium-sized ships. The first of these large ships to be built was Vasa. Private Dutch contractors began constructing plans for Vasa in Stockholm in 1625, with shipwright Henrik Heibertson hired to design and build the ships. Heibertson had a difficult task ahead of him. He had been asked to make one of the largest and most ambitious ships ever commissioned by Sweden. Warships of the day carried a single gun deck, but the king had heard the Danes were building something new, a warship with 2 gun decks. Vasa would answer it. The king wanted 72 guns across 2 full gun decks, which was more firepower than almost anything then afloat. This was uncharted territory. Almost nobody had attempted to build a ship with 2 gun decks, including Heibertson. He designed Vasa in a way that would seem completely foreign today, without any plans on paper. This wasn't recklessness, it was actually a standard method of shipbuilding that had existed for centuries. Ships were designed and built largely by eye, using a small number of principal dimensions and proportional rules refined through generations of experience. The shipwrights had an idea of what made a ship stable, but they had no scientific theory that could predict exactly why a design would stay upright or capsize. They trusted methods that had worked on previous ships. The trouble was that Vasa was a new kind of ship. Heibertson fell ill while designing the vessel and had to take a step back in the summer of 1626. To lead construction was another Dutch shipwright named Henrik Jacobsen. He laid down the keel according to Heibertson's plans, and the ship was launched in 1627. Heibertson passed away from his illness around this time. After launching, work on the ship continued. Vasa was 4 stories tall and had 3 giant masts. Not only was she physically imposing, but she was also decorated in ornamentation dense with symbolic meaning. All of it broadcasting the authority, wisdom, and martial prowess of the Swedish crown. But every sculpture added weight exactly where the ship could least afford it, up high. By 1628, the ship was complete, but there was a problem. As construction progressed, Jacobsen suspected that the ship was too narrow. This worry had been passed down throughout the shipbuilders, but nobody acted on it until the captain of the ship, Surfring Hansen, decided to run a demonstration in front of Vice Admiral Claes Larsen Fleming. Hansen instructed 30 crew members to run back and forth across the upper deck. After only 3 trips, the ship rolled so violently that the admiral demanded the test be stopped, worrying that Vasa would capsize. Jacobsen's fears were confirmed. The ship was top-heavy, but they couldn't change the design at this point, nor add more ballast to weigh it down without sinking the lower gun ports toward the waterline. The ship was not fit to sail. At this time, King Gustavus was away fighting his war. He couldn't see the problem for himself, and crucially, nobody dared tell him that his flagship wasn't fit for sea. Worse, Gustavus was sending letters insisting the ship launch as soon as possible. On August 10th, 1628, the air was calm, the wind light out of the south, and thousands had gathered along the shore to watch Sweden's crown jewel set sail. Captain Hansen knew she would have to be sailed carefully. Vasa caught the wind and began to move. Down low along her sides, the gun ports sat open for a ceremonial salute, each one a small opening just above the waterline. For a few hundred meters, everything held. Then the first gust of wind hit. She heeled hard and hung there for a moment, until slowly pulling herself upright. Then came a second gust. This time she didn't recover. Vasa leaned until her open lower gun ports dipped beneath the surface, and the sea poured straight in through them. Vasa quickly sank to the bottom of the harbor, while crewmen grasped to the masts. The exact number aboard isn't known, but it was likely between 150 and 250 people. All but 30 survived. Captain Hansen survived and was arrested the next day. It took 2 weeks for news of the sinking to reach the king, who was in Poland. Filled with rage, he demanded harsh punishment for those at fault. An inquest was organized. All surviving crewmen were questioned along with shipwright Jakobsen, who claimed that he had built the ship exactly as the late Hybertsen had planned. It became clear that Hybertsen was partially at fault, although he could not be punished since he had passed away. As the investigation progressed, blame silently fell on King Gustavus as well. He had personally overseen the design and approved it before construction. Of course, the king himself was the last person an inquest would convict. The investigation was closed with no one to blame, and Vasa was left on the harbor floor for the next 333 years. What saved her was the water itself. The Baltic is brackish, meaning it's too low in salt for the shipworm that devours wooden wrecks in warmer seas. Where any other ocean would have eaten her to nothing, these cold, murky waters preserved her. Vasa might have stayed there forever, if not for Anders Franzén, a naval engineer obsessed with Sweden's lost warships. He spent years searching the harbor until finally, in 1956, he came across a large wooden object in the water. It turned out to be Vasa. Raising her was incredibly difficult and dangerous. Divers tunneled beneath the hull in near total darkness, threading steel cables underneath to cradle her like a sling. Inch by inch, across multiple lifts, they raised Vasa, and in 1961, she broke the surface for the first time in 333 years. She came up astonishingly intact and wasn't alone. With her were some skeletons of the crew. Most were reduced to bone, though in one case, even brain tissue had survived. Today, Vasa stands in a museum built around her, the best preserved ship of her age anywhere on Earth.